Happy New Year, kiddies. Wishing you all good things in 2025, or whatever it is you're supposed to say at the beginning of the year. Today I want to tell you all the story of my relationship with my father in my teen years. So, let's go. When I turned 13, my mother declared that she had done her bit regarding child rearing, and that from that point onward, she was turning me over to my dad. She would continue to feed and clothe me, but I guess after raising 2 boys, she didn't think she was up for all that teenage girl drama. Can you imagine? My own mother. And she was good as her word too. She handed the reins over to my dad, and so began a 6-year war that could rival wars between countries. When I started going out at night, my father was the one who would wake up to let me in when I came home from a party or some other activity, because heaven forbid he actually gave me a damn key. Mom would be snoring hell hard in her bed. Once I was home before she woke up in the morning, she was none the wiser. But my father, he was always awake when I knocked on the window, and seldom pleased at the time I was returning. "You see the time?" he would say, and I would reply, "Well, if you would give me a key and go in your bed, you wouldn't have to be up at this hour." Same conversation every time, like some really bad parody of the Groundhog Day movie. If my father dropped me to an event and gave me a time when he would be returning for me, well, I had better be ready and waiting at that time. I learned that the hard way, by not being outside and waiting once. He parked and came in, and I saw him walking around among the dancing couples. Those were serious rent-a-tile days. It was one of the most embarrassing moments of my life. After that, I was always ready and waiting when he returned. I guess it could have been worse though. He could have given the DJ my name and have him call me out the way his brother did to my cousin. "Your father is waiting for you by the gate." Yes, it ran in the family apparently. Actually, it was kind of 6 of one and half a dozen of the next. By age 15, I had a steady boyfriend. Kind of early for that time, but because the families knew each other well, it was allowed. He would come over on the weekend, and we'd sit on the porch talking. When I think back, I have no idea what we talked about, but we did it for hours. Sometimes long past the time my father thought we should. So, he'd don his PJs. Yes, people, all my life my father wore pajamas to bed. He had long cotton ones and short cotton ones in various shades of blue and brown. He'd put on a pair and come out into the living room so that we could see him and start closing windows and turning off lights in the house. This was the signal for my gentleman caller to depart. And I know you're thinking, well, the poor man wanted to go to bed. But believe me, this pantomime took place long before his usual bedtime. Even my mother was mortified. I remember going to my best friend's sister's wedding. She married into quite a wealthy family, and the wedding reception was an evening of excess, to say the least. The group of us, boys and girls, all in our teens, drank more champagne that night than we had even seen before. It was quite the soiree. My dad had been out of the country for work and had returned while we were at the wedding. When we got home, all semi-wasted as we were, we stayed outside by the car talking about the highlights of the evening. I even had a friend staying over. All of a sudden, my father storms out of the house and gives us a tongue lashing about how long we had been out there, how much noise we were making, and how inconsiderate we were. He ordered my friend and I into the house and told the rest to leave. In my drunken state, I made sure to tell him how crazy I thought he was being before falling into bed and fast asleep. Much later on, I would come to realize that he was angry because he had been waiting for me to come home so he could show me the gifts he had bought for me on his travels. And he had lost his patience. My father always prided himself on his ability to buy me clothes that I liked, as opposed to my mom, who bought what she liked and convinced herself that I would like it too, although we had very different tastes. At the time, though, I thought he was the world's biggest idiot. As I got older, the fights changed but didn't lessen. We argued about school, what subjects to take, how much to study, you name it, we fought about it. My brothers were both living in the UK, so he focused all his energies on me. And to be fair, I gave him lots to focus on. It didn't help that my father had these random rules. Like, no one is supposed to call the house on the phone after 9:30. Why 9:30? Nobody knows. He'd say, who calls someone's house after 9:30? And I mean, he would say that to the caller. Boys were afraid of him. And these were just my friends because I was with the same guy from age 14 to 20. After I sat GC advanced level exams, the big debate was over what to do next. My father just assumed that I would be going to university and that it would be in the UK where my brothers were. I had no plan really, so I didn't argue about that. But I horrified him by insisting that I wanted to take a year off to work. He thought it was best just to keep going. I stuck to my guns and got a job at a bank. That turned out to be a good idea because then I was able to return to the bank every June to August when I was home for the holidays. It also led to another fight that was to last years because while in training for the bank, a group of us girls were put up at a guest house. And in my boredom, I picked up smoking. No one else in the family smoked, and my father thought it was the most disgusting habit ever. That fight would last all the way through university and beyond. Of course, he was right, but he had to wait many years before I actually quit. Then we would fight about my weight, which ballooned in the aftermath. My father was skinny his whole life and didn't understand people who were overweight. Back to the applying for university. For my father, going to UE was not an option. He said one of the reasons for attending university was to broaden your worldview, and that couldn't happen if you were right here on this little island. So you had to go abroad. I didn't put up much of a fight, even though the thought of leaving the boyfriend was killing me. Secretly, I think that was another reason my father wanted me to go. When the applications for university were being filled out, there was another war. First of all, after applying to 2 schools in the UK and not being accepted, I started looking elsewhere. Truth is, my grades weren't stellar, as after sitting O-levels, I seriously lost the will to study. I was kind of surprised I passed, to be honest. Anyway, my dad thought I should keep applying to schools in the UK. Eventually, we settled on Canada. He wanted me to apply to McMaster University because his sister lived in that city, so I did and was accepted. He also felt I should live at his sister's house, and that is where we disagreed. Dad's sister was prudish and old-fashioned, and as far as I was concerned, what was the point of living thousands of miles away from your parents, then moving in with someone who was even worse? No way. I said, I live on campus or I am not going. I think the thought of having me around like a thorn in his side for more years was so upsetting that he gave in. I had no idea what I wanted to do, career-wise. But I had a pass in economics, so my father suggested international relations. No idea which orifice he pulled that one out of. But I said, okay, and signed up for classes that would lean that way. I also signed up for English literature and drama classes because I had a pass in literature, I loved to read, and drama sounded exciting. So off to uni I went. Interesting enough, my parents did not accompany me. Nowadays helicopter parents would never consider doing that. No, they just took me to the airport, said sayonara, and left. My aunt met me at the other end, and let me tell you, the few days I spent with her shopping for winter clothes and the like convinced me I had made the right choice. We would have been at each other's throats. I attended the econ classes my father made me sign up for, then realized at the end of year 1 that I would need a whole other year of econ before I could go into international relations. And I said, no, thank you. I'll take honors drama and English lit for 500, please, Alex. My father declared that I would be poor my whole life. That turned out to be less of a statement than a curse. But I consoled myself with the thought that if I had taken the other road, I probably would not have passed. My father later admitted that his plan was that, like my brothers, I would live abroad after school and not return except for holidays. Needless to say, that is not what I did. Not only did I return, but I returned with my degree in one hand and a newborn in the other, and moved back in with my parents. When I told my parents I was pregnant, or more accurately, when my roommate told them because I couldn't quite get the words out, their reactions were very different. My mother reminded me that I would need new jeans because the ones I had wouldn't fit. I think she was in shock. And my dad reminded me that there were options I could take. He couldn't bring himself to name those options, but I understood. I didn't take them, but I understood. Oh, by the way, the father was the same boyfriend from before, in case you were wondering. When I moved back in with my parents, things again shifted. Now that I had become a mother, other than reminding me that I would have to contribute financially to the home, one of Dad's many rules of good living, my father backed away. That is, after he made it clear that my plan to allow the father to play a role in my son's life, the child father who, horror of horrors as far as my dad was concerned, had not offered to marry me and save me the shame of being an unwed mother. Yeah, that plan was not happening while I still lived in his house. His words were, I don't think so. And the conversation was over. He didn't even ask me if I wanted to marry the man. I didn't. Anyway, my mom took over management of me and grandson number 1. Needless to say, that led to a whole new set of wars. But that is for another day. Thanks for listening. And until next time, just saying.